please hit that subscribe button. Hey everybody, better suited to win the Stanley Cup this season. If you are new to the channel, Washington Capitals, the Boston Bruins.
Locked on and he scored! And we're live. Hey everybody, so we've talked about restricted free agents coming up this summer in 2020. Now I want to look at unrestricted free agents and look at the 10 best unrestricted free agents who will be available whenever free agency happens to open this summer. We still don't know if it's going to be July 1 or if because of this whole situation it gets pushed back. But when free agency does open, and it inevitably will, these guys are going to be the top 10 players on the market. Now, like for the RFA video, no goaltenders are in this video. Goaltenders are getting their own video, which I'm going to be recording right after this. So these are only skaters, players who play out coming up. So let's get into it here. Before we start, I just have to ask that you please hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel, as that really helps out a lot and is much appreciated. And give this video a like if you haven't already, as those thumbs up really help out a lot as well. So let's get into it here. Starting at number 10, the 10th best UFA coming up in 2020 is center Carl Soderberg. Played last season with the Arizona Coyotes, put up 17 goals, 18 assists for 35 points and a +6 rating in 70 games. He's 34 years old, older player, good veteran guy, middle of your lineup type center. I like him better as a third-line center than a second-line center, but good middle of the lineup type guy, and I think there's definitely going to be teams with interest in a guy like Soderberg who can bring some good depth and secondary scoring to your lineup. Number 9, we have forward Tyler Ennis, who finished the season with Edmonton after being traded at the trade deadline. In 70 games this past season, he scored 16 goals, 21 assists for 37 points and a -6 rating. He's a really good depth scorer, a solid guy to have, again, bottomish, middle-ish of your lineup. He's a guy you can move up and down on the wings, which is a good, versatile player to have. I wouldn't necessarily want him on my first line. Now, obviously, in Edmonton, he was getting top 6 minutes because they're a little short on, high-level offensive wingers. Their stars play down the middle. But Ennis is a guy who, if you put him with a high-end player on that first line, you're going to get goals out of him. And he's a guy who can chip in goals from a fourth-line role as well. So you really can play him anywhere up and down the lineup. A solid, versatile secondary scorer to have. 30 years old. Been around the league a while now, over 600 games played, over 300 career points. He will make a nice addition to somebody's lineup as a secondary scorer. Number 8, we have our first defenseman on the list, defenseman Tyson Barrie. 28 years old, played obviously with Toronto this past season, had 5 goals, 34 assists for 39 points in 70 games played. He's got over 550 games in his career, over 340 points. Is a heavy minus player, -7 last season, -66 on his career. He is pretty much a purely offensive defenseman. He is not very good in his own zone. But for a team that is looking for an offensive defenseman, maybe he stays in Toronto even, maybe he moves on. But for a team looking for an offensive defenseman, Tyson Barrie can be a good player if he's not put in a position where he has to do too much. Tyson Barrie, in my opinion, is not a top pair defenseman. He's a middle pair guy who you don't want to give a lot of defensive responsibility to. You want to pair him with a defensive defenseman, somebody who's very, stays back in their own zone and focuses on defense first. If you pair him with someone like that, so he doesn't have to worry about the defensive zone as much, which is certainly not his strong suit, and he can focus on the offense, he can be a very good puck-moving offensive defenseman who can add a lot of offense to the game and also play on the power play. So in the right situation, I think Tyson Barrie can be a very effective player. If you put too much pressure on him, or he has to be too much of a top guy, I think you're going to see more bad defensive zone play, heavy minus numbers, and overall disappointment. But in the right situation, I think Barrie can be a really solid player. Number 7, we have another defenseman Kevin Shattenkirk, who's coming off a season with the Tampa Bay Lightning. 70 games played. Huge bounce back year for Kevin Shattenkirk. 8 goals, 26 assists for 34 points and a plus 22 rating. This has been Kevin Shattenkirk's best season since he was with the St. Louis Blues. He had a short stint with the Washington Capitals that really didn't go all that well, and then a disaster of a stint with the New York Rangers where his career really just completely derailed and fell off the train tracks. He was a guy who was, pretty close to being out of the league, but he got a chance this season with Tampa Bay on a 1-year contract, and he certainly made the most of it, got his career back on track, had a very nice season with the Lightning in a top 4 role, 34 points, plus 22, good at both ends of the ice. Kevin Shattenkirk this season looked much more like the Kevin Shattenkirk of the St. Louis Blues Kevin Shattenkirk than the New York Rangers Kevin Shattenkirk. So good to see him get his career back on track. I do think there's going to be interest in him, as over the course of his career, he's been a solid defenseman with almost 700 career games played, almost 400 career points. He's been a good player. Again, he had that rough stretch in there with the Capitals and certainly with the Rangers, but now he seems to be back on track, 31 years old. I think he's going to find a 3 to 4 year deal somewhere in free agency and, become a solid, be a solid top 4 defenseman somewhere. Moving up now to number 6, we have right wing Tyler Toffoli, who finished the season with Vancouver after being traded at the trade deadline. And we know what Toffoli is: 24 goals, 20 assists for 44 points in 68 games played this year. Solid second line scorer. 20-goal guy, 40 to 50-point guy, solid player, good guy to have in the middle of your lineup, only 28 years old. So I do think he's going to get a long-term contract somewhere. Whether he stays in Vancouver or whether he hits the open market and moves on somewhere else, Toffoli is a really good goal scorer to add into your lineup, and he is going to make someone very, very happy. At number 5, we have right wing Evgeny Dadonov coming from the Florida Panthers, who put up another solid quality season this year with 25 goals, 22 assists for 47 points in 69 games played. He's got 202 points in 280 career games played in the NHL. He's been a solid middle of the lineup producer for the Florida Panthers, playing the wing there. He can play second or third line, but he produces enough to be a top 6 winger. Really solid goal scorer. And again, I think he's going to make someone really happy in free agency coming in there and, just consistently around 25 to 30 goals year in and year out. Number 4, we have another Florida Panther, Mike Hoffman, who in 69 games played this year had 29 goals, 30 assists for 59 points, and has 359 career points in 493 career games played, 172 of them being goals. Another high-quality goal scorer, solid point producer, certainly a top 6 winger. He's going to be a big name on the market this year. Obviously, he's in the top 5. He's going to be a big name. I think there's going to be a lot of interest in Mike Hoffman, somebody who can come in and give you 30 goals on the year, and that's obviously a hot commodity, goal scoring at that level on the open market. Number 3, we have defenseman Torey Krug, who I think is one of the most underrated offensive defensemen in the NHL. Coming from Boston, now I really hope as a Bruins fan that Boston re-signs him. And with the David Backes contract gone, I think Boston should be able to re-sign him. But if he does hit the open market, Torey Krug is going to make fans of whatever team signs him very happy. 9 goals and 40 assists for 49 points as a defenseman in 61 games played this season. In his career, he's played 523 games and put up 337 career points while still being a plus player at plus 23. Listen, he's, as a Bruins fan and getting to watch this guy night in and night out, he is so underrated. Good skater. Quarterbacks the power play, great puck mover, doesn't score a ton of goals. He's not a guy who's going to score 15 or 20 goals from the back end, but he racks up a ton of assists. great puck mover, great setup man, point producer, 29 years old, so, obviously he's still, he hasn't even hit that 30 mark yet. He's going to get a long-term contract somewhere, and he is better defensively than most people realize. Just because he puts up big offensive numbers doesn't mean he's a liability in his own zone. He is much better defensively than most people realize. Really solid in his own end, good at getting the puck out. And physical too. He will throw the body around. He is not a big player, but he will throw the body around. He will also fight from time to time, which is fun to watch. I'm a huge fan of Torey Krug, and I really hope Boston keeps him. But he is one of the top pending UFAs for sure. Number 2, we have the best defenseman hitting the open market this summer, and certainly the number 1 guy, but I really don't see him going anywhere. That is Alex Pietrangelo from the St. Louis Blues, 30-year-old defenseman with 70 games played this season, 16 goals, 36 assists for 52 points and a +11. Obviously won the Stanley Cup last year with St. Louis. He is the captain of the Blues. I don't see him leaving St. Louis. That would be shocking to me if he goes somewhere else. I think him and the Blues get a deal done. I mean, he's the captain of the team. He's only 30 years old, so he's got another at least 6 or 7 quality years in him. Really, really good player. And, 450 career points, +77 and 758 career games. Number 1 defenseman, true star number 1 defenseman. If he hits the open market, he's going to become one of the highest paid defensemen in the NHL. I don't think he hits the open market. I think the Blues keep him. And that finally brings us to number 1. You probably all know who it is. Left wing Taylor Hall, who was traded to Arizona in December. Going to be a pending free agent unless he re-signs with Arizona before the free agent period opens. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to hit the open market. 28 years old, former league MVP, had a 93-point season a few years ago. Not as good this year. 65 games, 16 goals, 36 assists for 52 points and a -14. But he's got 563 career points in 627 career games. High-level scoring winger, first-line winger. He's shown in the past that when he's healthy, he is an elite player. Staying healthy has been an issue for him, but I think some team, given the current climate in the NHL, some team is going to go out and give Taylor Hall big-time money and hope that he lives up to it. And whether that happens or not, him living up to it remains to be seen. But I think he is going to get a huge contract this offseason. And he is the best, most talented player on the open market this year in free agency. And that makes him my number 1 UFA in 2020. So there you have it, guys. My top 10 unrestricted free agents coming up in the 2020 offseason here. We'll see where they end up. We'll see who stick with their current team and get re-signed, which ones end up going somewhere else. But there are obviously some really good players at the top of that list. I do think it drops off considerably. This isn't going to be a massive year, I don't think, for free agency. But there are definitely some very good players out there, and certainly some good secondary scorers out there who can certainly, take a team and add that missing piece in the middle of the lineup that could push them into going from a good team to a great team. So it'll be interesting to see where all these players end up. But with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description below. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.